it's partisan politics. You know, Democrats, Republican, independent, you know, anything else. It doesn't matter. You know, what's best for the people that we serve. I'm done.
Mr. Secretary, 30 seconds.
Yeah, we have to be careful that what's best for the people we serve isn't bad for some other people we serve, which is often the case when the government gets involved in trying to fix the problems that we're faced with. And so, I'm sorry, did you want to reply to that? Please, go ahead.
Somebody has to set the boundaries. Somebody has to set the rules. You have 350 million people in this country, and somebody has to set the rules for the people that live here.
Sure.
And so we can't just say, well, all of you just go do what you want to do, and that doesn't work either.
Yeah,
and so there has to be.
If I may take my time back, since
Sure.
you graciously gave me that. So I mentioned those three rules earlier. Don't hurt people, don't take their stuff, and honor your contracts. Of course there have to be rules. If we follow those three rules, we can foster a climate where we get along and we respect each other's opinions and we can agree to disagree. When we set government policy, the debate is over.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question from the audience is, what would you do to address the topic of undocumented individuals in our district, including the topic of their employment? And it goes first to Mr. Coleman.
Well, undocumented individuals.
Immigrants, presumably.
First of all, I think that we need to have a strong immigration reform program. We have to begin to accept folk in this country that are here, that have been here, and have come to this country to make a new life. The United States of America is a country built on immigrants from all over the world since its inception. And for us to say that we are too good to accept someone else in this country, I think is hypocritical. I think that we have to provide a path to citizenship to people that are in this country. Now, as a retired police officer, I understand safety and security, and, you know, there's some value in that. And so we have to make sure that we protect borders, that we do vetting of people coming in and out of the country. But to separate families, divide people, to keep people from realizing the American dream that we've all been able to benefit from, I think is wrong. And we have to find a way to fix that, to make sure that we fix the immigration problem in this country.
Thank you. Mr. Stenfish.
We are a nation of immigrants, and I think we should do as much as we can to embrace immigration. It takes a long time for someone to get into this country who tries to get in legally, and because of that, they seek other options. As far as the people that are here that are undocumented, I can never get behind a plan to round them up and kick them out of this nation, simply because they were born across the boundary. That is not a humanitarian, compassionate way to deal with people. And I agree with Mr. Coleman that we need to find a way to allow them into our government and to get legitimacy here. And for people who want to come to this country and work, we need to make it a lot easier to get a work visa that would entail a background check to make sure that they're not wanted for horrible crimes in some other nation before we let them in and allow them to come seek work in America. But this is another topic that's tied in with many other issues that we don't talk about very much: immigration, the economy, the war on drugs. These are all deeply intertwined, and we need to make sure that we consider all aspects of these and talk about how they impact all of them. It's a multifaceted issue.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman, 30 seconds if you'd like to.
You know, again, I believe that we have to have a pathway to citizenship in this country. And for us to say that folk are undocumented and we treat them inhumane because of that, I think is wrong. And I think if we're going to be the United States of America, we have to find a path to citizenship. And for us to punish an 18, 19-year-old kid that's been here all their life because their family was trying to find a better way, a better life for them, And now we tell them that you have to, and this is all they know, and we're going to tell them that you have to leave this country. It's not right to do.
Thank you.
He should have said that.
All right, we're going to go next to a question. We'll go first to Mr. Senkush. It says, what are your individual stances on gun rights and the Second Amendment? Do you support a universal background check? And should assault weapons be banned from the general public? Go first to you, Mr. Senkush.
Okay, three-part question. First part, what again was my
Your
personal
stance
stance?
on gun rights and the Second Amendment.
Okay, let's start with there. Okay, so every living creature has a mechanism to try to defend itself from attack. It may be defensive, it may be camouflage, it may be claws if you're a bear. Our right to bear arms is simply a human being's right to defend themselves against those that would cause them harm. Libertarians strongly embrace the Second Amendment and feel that you obviously, like everything else that lives, have a right to defend yourself. What was the second part?
Universal background check
Yeah,
and assault weapons ban.
I don't support any additional legislation for restricting our ability to get guns. I think that we have enough in place now. Assault weapons, meaning what, weapons that fire, military grade, is that how you're defining?
Automatic,
Semi-automatic.
large
Yeah.
capacity.
Automatic weapons have been banned since 1973. Semi-automatic weapons are legal, and I don't think that they need to be restricted. I think you're better off carrying yourself and defending yourself from aggression. Remember, whenever you need the police, in seconds, they're only minutes away.
All right, we'll go next to our police officer. I see.
I'm going to get in trouble with this. I am going to get in trouble with this. First of all, I think that I respect the Second Amendment, and I think there's a place for that. I think we should have the right to bear arms. But I don't think we need to make sure that we understand what that means. I don't think we should allow everybody in America that wants a gun to have a gun. Everybody doesn't deserve to have one. I think that we have to do universal background checks so that we can make sure that we're not providing weapons to people that don't deserve to have them. And if I'm going to protect my family, I don't know if I need a Uzi with a 100-round banana clip to do that with. If I'm going rabbit hunting, I don't need a semi-automatic weapon to hunt small game. So we have to make sure that we're extremely careful with that. And so I have a problem with not doing background checks. I also have a problem with high semi-automatic, automatic weapons. I don't want to send a police officer into a situation where he or she has less firepower or weaponry than the people that they're going to fight against. Shouldn't happen. And so we have to do a better job with weapons in this country. Too many kids are dying.
Thank you. Mr. Senkush, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I would agree that we don't need to send our police in underarmed. They need to be just as well armed as we are.
More is not better. More is not better. When we think guns are going to solve our problems, all it's going to do is make it worse. We have to find a way to understand each other as human beings to fix problems. Guns will not solve our problems, cause more problems than it helps.
Okay, we will go next to the issue of education, and this question goes first to Mr. Coleman. It says, what is your position on funding education, K through 12, and higher education? And this person is particularly interested in your position regarding public education.
I think education is paramount to our communities, and I think that the United States of America has to be engaged in education programs. And I'll go a step further. K through 12 is too late. We have to do pre-K education in this country to make sure that we provide early education for kids, and it has to be affordable to all kids, wherever you are in this country, so that we can make sure that every child in America has the right and the opportunity to strong education. We have to make sure that we make college affordable in the country, so that every kid that wants to go to college can afford to go to college and not have to pay for the next 10, 15, 20 years of their life trying to pay back college loans. And so I support public education. And I think that we have to, if we expect this country to grow and develop more than it is, it has to start with education, and it has to be public education in our communities.
Mr. Senkush.
The Constitution of the United States has no provision in it for the federal government to be involved in education. Right now, they are taxing you for education through income taxes. They're attaching strings to that, and they're sending it down to the states with mandates that cost more than the money they send. Parents should be the ones who decide how their children are educated. The Indiana Constitution calls for K-12 education and mandates that that is funded. That is a state-level issue. That's where it should be decided, not through the federal government.
Maybe decided that it has to be supported. Federal government has to support state education. And if we don't support education efforts in this country, then we lose. And it's a known fact. There's information out there that says that if a kid is not properly educated, the chances of he or she ending up in a penal institution, okay, is extremely great. If they go to prison, we will spend $30,000 a year to house somebody in prison. It costs us somewhere close to $15,000 a year to educate a kid in college. Where do we want to spend our money? Okay, we have to do public education.
Okay, and now, yes.
So under no way, shape, or form did anything I say indicate that I'm not for education. The question is, where is it addressed? How does our Constitution spell that out? That's all I'm pointing out. Of course, we need to educate our children. It needs to be handled by the state level as per the instructions of our government. If we want to change it, we have something called an amendment process. The last time we used it was 1973. If we want to make education a federal issue, first we have to pass an amendment to allow the federal government to do that.
Okay, and Mr. Coleman, you're supposed to have the last rebuttal on this, so go ahead.
But if we depend on state government to take care of public education, we will get what we're getting now, where they take the money, mismanage it, and all kids don't get the same affordability of the same education across the country, across the state. If we're going to do it, we have to make sure that all kids receive the same level of service across this, and that doesn't happen. In fact, it doesn't even happen locally. A kid on one side of town in one school will get the different education than a kid in another school. That should not happen. So government has to be involved in educating our kids.
Okay, thank you very much. And now I feel like the presidential debate moderators, as I remind the audience to please refrain from cheers and jeers so that we can get as many questions in as possible. The next set of questions really has to do with your biggest priorities and your biggest challenges. So what do you think is the biggest challenge that faces the district, and how will you address this if you are elected? So what is it that you would really like to tackle as soon as you're elected? And we go first to you, Mr. Senkush.
I would probably start with taxation reform. Currently, our current administration has been caught using the IRS to target political enemies. There's a history of that also happening with the Republican Party when President Nixon was caught using the IRS to target his political enemies. So I would like to change taxation to a sales-based tax using a model of something called the fair tax system. There's no way in the world I can explain that to you in 90 seconds. If you want to check it out, you're going to have to look at it. But it would allow shifting taxation to sales-based taxes. There's something called a prebate to make sure that the poorest among us don't pay an exorbitantly high amount of taxes. And this will allow you the freedom to choose how much you pay and to protest, if you will, if you're not happy. If you're not happy that the government's bombing countries with your money, if you're not happy that it's trying to tell you what you can put in your body and what you can't, if you're not happy with anything it's doing under our current system of taxation, you have to pay for it, and that's it. If we move to something like a fair tax that allows you the ability to at least say, look, I'm going to cut back on what I buy because I don't like what they're doing, and I don't have to go to jail for being a protester.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman, would you like to respond to the issue of moving from income taxes to consumption-based taxes, and then we'll have a rebuttal, and then we'll go next to you for your number one objective?
Thank you. Nobody likes to pay taxes, but you know what? It's a necessary evil. It has to happen. And what we have to do is we can't stop paying taxes. We just have to make sure that it's fair and equitable and that everybody pays their fair share. And for us just to say that we're going to allow, you to pay whatever you think you should pay, that's not right, okay? That then goes back to putting us in a position where the rich gets richer and the poor suffers more. And we can't do that. We have to be better than that. And so I think that for us to go to the tax system that he just described will only make the divide greater between folks and their communities. Shouldn't happen.
Mr. Senkush, is it a regressive plan? It sounds like that's the concern, that poor people spend more of their income in...
It would be more regressive if it didn't include the prebate, which is designed to offset that and to make sure that the poorest among us are not burdened with extra taxation. And to suggest that somehow it's more moral, or there's a moral high ground in arbitrarily deciding how much tax you have to pay and being able to pick and choose who pays more or less, to suggest that that's a morally superior idea to allowing a sales-based tax, which gives individuals more control over what they do, I think is a false argument.
Let's move then to Mr. Coleman and the biggest challenge that you see facing the district and how you would tackle it once elected.
I think there's more than one. I think there's several. First of all, I think education is a huge issue for us, and we have to make sure that we support a strong public education, neighborhood education in this community. I think jobs and economy is extremely huge. We have to make sure that we provide jobs for people in this country and not close down factories and businesses through trade deals and send jobs overseas. And people right here in the United States, and more specifically the second district, are looking for job opportunities. And I think that we have to make sure that we start building trust among each other, building relationships instead of breaking us apart for all different kind of reasons. And as long as we continue to do that, we'll continue to be in splitters. And so I think you fix those things by beginning to have conversations, including people that's in this room, in the processes of trying to fix those issues, instead of government just saying that, we're government, we're going to fix it, and we don't need any of these people here. It's going to affect all of you, and we have to include all of you in order to be able to address those issues. And so I don't think there's one issue. I think there's a level of issues that's going on in our communities that we have to try to find ways to address.
Mr. Senkush?
I have no response.
Thought you would pick up on that government can't solve everything.
It was his words. I'm good.
Right. Okay. All right, let's move on into the next question, which is the U.S. spends more on our military than the next 7 countries combined. Is U.S. military spending too big, too small, or just right? There is a corollary question here. It says, Mr. Senkush, your position seems to be that almost all taxes are theft. We know that our military has not been protecting us since 1946. Should we abolish the military? So since it goes to you first, we'll flip that question in there too. So too much spending, too little, just right? Are we doing too much with our military? Should it be abolished altogether?
Yeah, so libertarians believe in a strong national defense, but the key word there is defense, not offense. Right now, we're involved in way too much offense. We're involved in military interventionism across the globe. We're bombing countries. We're trying to institute regime change in places where we have no moral authority to do so. And so I think that we can have a very strong defense and still spend a lot less money than we do currently. All we have to do is defense instead of offense. And the second part of that, again, was please?
Is whether it should be
Should we not have a military?
abolished.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you picked up on the fact that I'm a veteran, so I mean, it's going to be difficult for me to stand here and say that we shouldn't have a military. I do believe that we should have a military, and I believe defense of our nation is very important. We could fund it voluntarily. I mean, I'm just saying. I'm not advocating for that. I'm just simply saying that it's possible that we can fund it through voluntary means.
Like the tax checkoff for public funding to the presidential
That's right.
election.
That's right.
People give so generously. All right, Mr. Coleman.
To use a sports analogy, if you have a strong offense, you protect your defense. So I think you have to have both. I think you have to have a strong offense and a strong defense in the military. Obviously, for me to tell you if we're spending too much or too little, that's hard to say. I think that comes with having an opportunity to actually look at budgets and what's going on, how many people, how much money we're spending, and where we're spending it at, where could we save, and that kind of thing. So I think that we have to have a strong military in this country to make sure that we protect and continue to make the United States of America the strongest country on the planet. And for us to cut back on that and to allow our position to be weakened in any position, I think it's detrimental to our citizens of this country. Now, does that mean that there shouldn't be some studies to determine, where we are in this area and how we improve and where we strengthen that? Well, I think that's absolutely necessary. But to talk about, getting rid of our national security and military, I think it's not on my sheet.
Sure. At one point in my life, the Democratic Party was famous for being the party of anti-war. I wonder what happened to that. There is no anti-war party in the big two now. They are all completely on board and embracing interventionist foreign policy, regime change in foreign nations. The Libertarian Party is the only party now that stands in an anti-war stance.
Can I, real quick, as a retired police, I'm not saying that I'm pro-war. Okay, I'm just saying that I'm pro-safety, and that's what the military's job is to make sure that they protect this country. It would be great if we didn't have to go to war, okay? But if you had to go and you're not prepared to do that, it puts all of us in jeopardy. So we have to have someone that's prepared to defend this country. That's what our military is supposed to do.
No more response.
All right. The next question says, what parts of the budget do you think should be cut in order to increase funding for programs that will help communities such as ours, which are restricted by tax caps? And this was first to you, Mr. Coleman.
Again, I think there's fluff in federal government, and I think we have to find a way to do that. Just right off the top of my head, there's some information going out that says that the current Congress supported efforts to do crazy things that doesn't benefit all of us, but just benefits a certain level of people. Specifically, they just had a gym where people can go work out, and only congressional people can use that. It's probably not something that we need to be funding. Okay, so there's a way to look down the line item and cut some things out of that. Okay, but it's hard to determine what that is without seeing it. But for us just to throw away the budget, okay, or say that we're going to cut out a whole section of something to save money, I don't think that's prudent. I think we have to make sure that we look at the budget and how it benefits the most of us to determine whether or not how much useful it is for all of us.
Mr. Senkush.
Obviously, we already touched on military spending. That is one way that I believe that we can cut. Another area that comes to mind is the war on drugs. We spend an enormous amount of money on the war on drugs. It isn't working. It's been a complete failure. Drug use is not lower than it's been over the last 40 years of the drug war. It's time we stop treating that as a criminal issue and started treating it as a health issue. I personally think we can treat it as a health issue through voluntary means, that we could cut all the money out of the drug war and we could donate to centers. But even if we did it with government funds, we would still spend a lot less money than we do currently and we would get a lot more effective results.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman.
Well, and again, I think the drug culture is a big issue. I think the criminal justice system needs to be looked at. I think our penal system, and so we have a lot of systems that need to be worked. We have penal systems now in this country that they're not reforming people, we're just warehousing people. So we need to figure out a way to address those kind of issues. And again, without looking at the total budget and where those dollars go, but we have to make sure that we're willing to reach across the aisle and work with one another and not be partisan politically as to how we do that. Again, it's not about us, it's about the people that we serve.
Do you agree with Mr. Senkush that drug use, not dealing, but use should be decriminalized and treated more as a prevention?
Well, I think
criminal?
the drug use in this country is an epidemic right now. I think it's not a criminal issue. I think it's more of a public safety issue, public health issue. And yes, we need to make sure that we do more treatment than we do locking people up. But just to do that blanketly, I don't think is good. We have to work at that. But for us to send people to jail for minor offenses of drug use is wrong. I think we have to attack where the drugs are coming from and who's bringing it and deal with those people and not punish the street users. We have to realize that I'm done.
Yes or no? Can I respond?
Yes, could we add it?
Sure.
Add it additional.
So we have alcoholics in this country, and which is another form of drug abuse. And largely they're non-criminal, they're non-violent. And the reason for that is their drug is so inexpensive that they can panhandle for it for just a few dollars. And so the war on drugs has made the price of drugs exorbitantly expensive. It causes the users to seek out crime to fund their habits, and it fills our prisons with people who shouldn't be there.
Tell that to a family. Tell that to a family whose kid just got killed in a car accident by a drunk driver. Okay, that not that big of a deal.
Tell them what.
You said that, we got people that drinking and they get it cheap and it doesn't mean it.
My point was that they don't commit crimes to get their drug.
Oh, yes, they do. Oh, yes, they do.
Have you been robbed by a wino?
Yes, they do it every day. They take advantage of each other every day. They rob each other, they steal from each other, they assault each other, they hurt each other. Alcoholics are one of the major offenses in this country that cause problems. And they leave that and they go to marijuana, and they leave that and they go to cocaine and they go to heroin. A heroin dealer does not start using heroin for the first time. It's normally other drugs that have gotten them to that point. And so all of it is bad. And so for us to say that we're going to minimize any of it less than other is wrong. We've got millions of people that are suffering from drug addiction, from alcohol abuse every day, and they'll do whatever they have to do to feed that addiction. I'm sorry. But that, obviously, that's...
But you're not supporting prohibition of a return to prohibition for alcohol, so it sounds like you would like to see more funding for treatment?
Absolutely. We have to treat it all. We have to treat it all.
Again, treatment, not criminalization, is the key.
Thank you. Sometimes when I think there's a good, interesting exchange, I already told them ahead of time that I